Okay. So I wanted to record this to cover the topic of like English. It's not English literature. This is English language and like comparatives. Comparatives are comparing stuff like how paper one goes. Basically like this. I didn't annotate it badly this time, but I don't know what paper you sent the last time, so I just wanted to like go through in case like this is useful. So the way I started it was, you see it says read the following extract give from a speech given in 1997. You can use the year within your blog post in order to add like background, and I think that makes it more realistic if you refer back to the 1900s, especially since it's talking about women. So you can already connect that, and I think it could give you points when it comes to making sure it makes sense, your blog post in relation to the larger text. So Hillary R. Clinton at the United Nations Fourth World Conference of Women, at the time as the wife of President Bill Clinton, as she was First Lady of the United States of America. Right? Also, when you see something like this, when you're writing about what you saw, for example, when you're writing a blog post, don't refer to the person by their name. You don't know them, and it's meant to be kept formal. So if you're writing something, you don't say, I saw Hillary. You say you saw the First Lady or Miss Clinton. Previously Miss Clinton. But yeah. So I'm going to read it out. It says, analyze form, structure, and language. Let me get my highlighter. Can you see the blue highlighter? Yeah, it's fine. So you begin like this. You can already see, this is not direct address. It's first person point of view. So you can tell that it's personal and like it's her, and you can use that when you're adding to like comparatives, depending on what thing you're supposed to compare. Like if it wasn't a blog post and it said a news report, you can write it as a point that the news report is not in first person because blah 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 blah, but the text is in first person because it's personal to Hillary Clinton and it's her speech. So you can already begin that. I would like to thank the Secretary General of the United Nations for inviting me to be a part of the United Nations North World Conference on Women. This is truly a celebration. A celebration. You call this little thing here, this dash, a parenthetical dash, and possibly because this is indeed a speech, it could indicate like what I did right now, like then continuing in speech, that little like stop. So I don't know how you could add it on, but instead I'm going to use something else to indicate that. But a celebration, that's repetition. Repetition is actually, what do you call it? Convection, no? What's that word when it's something quintessential to like convention, like whatever. Repetition is always seen in speeches as it adds emphasis. So when it says celebration, a celebration, she's really pushing like the narrative that this is a special moment. So yeah, of the contributions. So you can also see, like, I think you can count this as sibilants. Celebration, a celebration of the contributions. No, it's assonance. So you can add the C together to make a point. Women make in every aspect of life, in the home, on the job, in their communities, as mothers, wives, sisters, daughters, learners, workers, and citizens and leaders. And this is listing. It's a device whereby they list things on top, and it's used to, depending on the context, it's used to either indicate abundance of something or, yeah, it's basically the effect is indicating the abundance of something. So by including this, it may show that like Hillary is being empathetic by trying to encapsulate every single possibility of women, of like how they may be seen. Okay, now back onto this. I would like to thank the secretary, whatever. Long sentence. This one, long sentence, long punctuation. So that can be added onto form. You can add that as a point, as like this extract contains long sentences which are descriptive and full of punctuation. And then you see little things like this, like another long sentence in one paragraph. And when you do a speech and you notice that there is one paragraph of just like a few words, this is done for emphasis because she's trying to emphasize something. It is also a coming get together, much the way women come together every day in every country. You can see the repetition of every once again, which is quintessential to a speech. Next thing, we come together in fields and in factories, fricative, probably for emphasis, in village markets and supermarkets, market, market, repetition, in living rooms and boardrooms, repetition of room. So can you see that concurring theme of repetition and like speech things? Like maybe you can call it even rhyme. That would actually be a good thing that I can include. The stuff actually like rhymes. We come together in fields and factories, in village markets and supermarkets, in living rooms and boardrooms. Sorry, I just tried to have that. Don't worry about that. Whether it is while playing with our children in the park, or washing clothes in a river, or taking a break at the office cooler. What? Washing clothes in a river or taking breaks in the office water cooler. That is literally rhyme once again. And I don't, what could the effect? So it sounds pleasant to the ear so that it's memorable and people can understand it better. So I'm gonna write that. That's wrong spelling, don't worry about that. Inspirations and concern, and time again. There's a thing that happens when people are speaking, normally in speeches or podcasts. They start sentences with what are they called? Conventions. I wrote this down somewhere. Connective. Okay, it's on the paper. The paper about writing podcasts. So, no, it's not a contraction. It's a conjunction. They start sentences with conjunctions like and, but, because that normally, it's a normal thing that people do when they're speaking, but not do when they're writing, because it's not commonly done. Our talks turn to our children and our families. Once again, you can also bring reference to the use of our and we, which are group words, like they allude to communities, it's not just singular. So you can also point out the use, you can count how many uses of we and our are in the whole passage. You shouldn't do this during an exam, it's useless. But if you just want to like analyze, or if you find it easy, you can point out the use of we or our in order to build community, to make a speech more relatable, So yeah. However different we may be, there is far more that unites us than divides us. We share a common future and another beginning with a conjunctive. Yeah, I wrote this down. Conjunctive. Yes, another beginning with a conjunctive. And we are also here to find common ground. Common. So that we may help bring new dignity and respect to women and girls all over the world. Parenthetical dash. And in doing so, bringing new strength and stability to families as well. And you can see there's something down here that's the same. There's a repetition of this line, but whatever. Yeah. And it's quite a long sentence as well. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 3. This is spanning through all of this, so very long sentences. But short paragraphs and long sentences tie into the structural part of analyzing a text. So yeah. Strength and stability, sibilance. By gathering in Beijing, we are focusing world attention on issues that matter most in the lives of women and their families. Access to education, healthcare, jobs, and credit. The chance to live a basic legal human rights, participate fully in political life of the country. This is again listing used to create a sense of abundance, maybe a abundance of issues, or like you can type, and I'm sure you're smart enough to do that, Tanaka. But you get what I mean when she's listing so many things of so many different types. It's in order to create the feeling that like there's something that's abundantly needed or something that has been abundantly provided. Another short paragraph. There are some who question the reason for this conference. Let them listen to the voices of women in their homes, neighborhoods, and workplaces. Rule of 3, also listing, but I normally don't like touch on the rule of 3. But there's some who question. This could be something, but normally in literature, I don't know what to do with it in this. There's some who wonder whether the lives of women and girls matter in economic and political progression around the globe. Ellipsis, that's what I'm going to say, a stop in speech, which is unique to podcasts, transcripts, scripts, and speeches. They do this to like indicate like what I'm doing right now. So I hope you understand that. Let them look at the women gathered here and in Hawairu, I don't know, man. Hawairu, homemakers, nurses, teachers, lawyers, policymakers, and women who run their own businesses. I dropped it for a second. Listing to show the potential and abundance of women in different professional fields. It is conferences like this that compel governments and people everywhere to listen, look, and face the world's most pressing problems. And long sentence. So you can see already there's so much to like comment on for your comparative, which is part B. And while you're listing stuff like this, you can also like pick up things because you're gonna need to compare. I'll get to that later. Next thing, wasn't. This is a contraction and it's normally used in colloquial speech. You don't write contractions in normal compositions. Wasn't, you don't say wasn't, don't, did, didn't in your normal things. But because this is a speech, she's speaking, it is appropriate. It's also appropriate in a podcast because people are talking. Nobody wants to say was not it after, so contraction, you can also let start. I'm actually going to write about that. Wasn't it after the Women's Conference in Nairobi 10 years ago that the world focused for the first time on the crisis of domestic violence? This includes a rhetorical question, and this makes the audience question, like it makes them begin thinking on like what she's saying, and they're like, oh yeah, they didn't talk about domestic violence before that. So it makes the audience consider what the speaker is saying and makes them more engaged in the text or in the speech, which is the purpose of a speech, Earlier today, I participated in the World Health Organization Forum. You can also maybe point out how she says World Health Organization and not just like WHO, right? Because it is a speech, there's no need for abbreviations because that might deter and confuse the crowd. Because who and who are like homophones, so she has to say World Health Organization Forum, where government officials, NGOs, and NGO, because there's no word NGO, so it's fine that way, and individual citizens are working on ways to address the health problems of women and girls. Tomorrow, I will attend a gathering of the United Nations Development Fund for Women. There, and you can also say that she's saying it in full for the emphasis to the people that this is about women. You can also count how many times women is said if you wanna be that much of a tryhard. There, the discussion will focus on local and highly successful programs that give hardworking women access to credit so that they can improve their own lives and the lives of their families. What we are learning around the world is that if women are healthy and educated, their families will flourish. If women are free from violence, their families will flourish. So she's making repetition of families will flourish. Like, that's fricative, and again, it makes it more memorable. It's like, who won't remember? Families will flourish, families will flourish, families will flourish, families will flourish, So it's a little thing like that. If women have a chance to work and earn as full and equal members in society, their families will flourish. And once again, a beginning with a conjunction. And when families flourish, communities, nations, and nations will flourish. That is why every woman, every man, repetition of every child, every family, and every nation on a planet has a stake in the discussion that takes place here. You see? Repetition of every, and that can also be used as a listing technique. So repetition plus listing, which leads to a large effect whereby it's encapsulating the abundance of the amount of people that this whole thing that she's fighting for will accomplish. Let this be our and the world's call to action. Small. And let conjunction. Let us heed the call so that we can create a world in which every woman is treated with respect and dignity. You've seen this before somewhere. Every boy and girl is loved and cared for equally, and every family has hope of a strong and stable future. Thank you very much. Speeches, people say thank you. Nobody will say thank you in like what you call it, a blog post. So that's basically it for that. So when I did this, I wrote direct response Hillary Clinton speech. So blog posts have titles. That's one of the main conventions of a blog post. So blog posts need to be memorable. So when you're writing a blog post, the top should include a pun, assonance, fricative, plosive, or something like that, or even a simile. It's just something that makes it memorable so you can get marks. So I wrote Hillary Clinton holds out a hand to all women, because that contains assonance. So I'm not exactly sure on the conventions of a blog post, but what I know is that it might be similar to a news thing. So a news report or a normal report. So you need to come up with the who, what, when, where, why, how. So who, Hillary Clinton, and where, why, and how, and whatever. So you just need to include that proper information. Hillary Clinton holds out a hand to all women. I recently had the privilege of attending the United Nations Fourth World Conference on Women. The First Lady of the United States, Hillary Clinton, was the guest of honor, and she delivered a speech that I think will impact and change the old 1900s view of women as second-class citizens. You can see, in preparation for my comparative, I've used similarly long sentences, long descriptive sentences, which are also quintessential to to reports and stuff like that, since they need to be descriptive, right? So you can also see that I didn't mention her by her first name, because you don't know these people. You are a college student writing a blog. You do not know Hillary Clinton, so do not act like you know Hillary Clinton. And I'm using first person because it is a blog post. Blog posts are less formal versions of news scripts. So you can now start saying I did whatever. And you can see that I also added a bit of context by tying in the fact that this was made in 1994. So, yeah. The room was filled to the brim with mostly women dressed in trendy suits. As the First Lady waltzed onto the stage, everyone went quiet. The room was as silent as a grave. The actual thing contains no similes, so I added a simile so I can comment on it. And filled to the brim, I don't know what you call that. And I also added the word trendy because I need to make a difference in terms of more informal, chatty language in here, and more formal language here, because that adds to its form. I'm pretty sure that counts as form. So yeah. The room was as silent as a grave, and the only thing perforating my ears was the sound of her snazzy salmon pink heels making a clink-clank noise on the marble floor. The speech does not contain any onomatopoeia, so by adding clink-clack, I'm giving myself something to comment on in the comparative later, as my text includes onomatopoeia, but the main text doesn't include onomatopoeia because it's a speech or whatever. On the marble floor. She looked kind of cool, almost like how I would expect Cinderella to have looked like as she entered the ball. This technique is called allusion when you reference to something that is culturally significant. For example, I mentioned Cinderella, and it's a comparison, and it basically creates an image in your mind of how Hillary Clinton would have waltzed into the area. And like waltzed Cinderella, lexical field of Disney. As she spoke, I felt inspired. I'm a self-proclaimed feminist, so you can imagine the chills that went down my spine as she said, "We can create a world in which every woman is treated with respect and dignity." So, I added you because this is direct appeal. I'm not quite sure if there's direct appeal in this, but it's just another good device since it's a blog post and it's informal. And it's about me. Blog posts about like you and the topic at hand, so you can do that. Okay. So you can imagine the chills that went down my spine. As she said, including quotations helps a lot, especially in these news-based things, because it adds that thing like you were actually there. So you can call it like internal context by lifting from here to put it here. And it also says, my spine, as she said. So that's also including my own little sibilance thingy. It's also too long. This is way too long, but who cares? One thing that I heard is that you don't sacrifice the amount of words you've written. You can write as many words, just make sure it makes sense. And I did that in my exams, and I still got an A in like the GCSEs. So I wouldn't worry about word count per se. It just needs to be like decent. Don't overdo it. I feel so much joy writing this, as I believe this event was essential. Satisfied grins were plastered on the faces of everyone who exited the facility. I would implore you all to listen to a recording of the conference, which you could access from your local news station. The thing with blogs is they usually involve links underneath, but this is the 1900s, so there's no links that exist. So instead of actually referencing like a YouTube link, I just referenced the local news station, because we're trying to kind of be persuasive. So with that done, we go back to looking. Good question. You're a blogger for your you're a blogger for your university student website, but website didn't exist. They're so delusional. Anyways, once again, remember you're a university student. You're a kid, which is why I went back and said stuff like snazzy and trendy, and I added you can imagine stuff that's like colloquial. You wouldn't see that in a business conference. So, you attended Hillary R. Clinton's speech. Write a blog post for your fellow students. So, it's for the people. It needs to be engaging. So maybe I can actually write that for my fellow students. That could add to short paragraphs, as kids have short attention spans. And personal account, descriptive sentences. It doesn't need to be about what Hillary said. It's my personal account. And then next thing, compare your blog post with the original speech, analyzing form, structure, and language. If you go and analyze tone, you are a lost soul. Because that's one thing that I did first when like I started doing like English. I did things they didn't ask me for. One thing, especially with literature, if you do something that they don't ask you for, you literally like not even get marks. Your point can be like fantastic, but like it will show kutione dzungu, because they didn't ask you. It's like I don't even know how to explain it, but just don't do stuff don't maximize on stuff that they didn't ask you. And I know most people are confused on forms, so then you should go and like actually research what form is. But like if you like go on a tangent about something that they didn't ask for, you will fail. It's like the most heartbreaking thing ever. So don't worry about this here. So when doing comparatives, one thing that I like to do, I sent you that video from the YouTuber, is like the diamond formation, right? So this is where they come together. This is where they differ. This is where they come together. This is where they differ. This is where they come together. This is where they differ. This is where they come together. This is where they differ. So I'll probably take 2, 2, 2 and leave out some other thingies because you don't have time to write that much. So where they come together, I tie that they both have short paragraphs because they're directed to the public, and the public has short attention spans and things need to be moving fast. And then for this, I included the inclusion of ellipsis. Ellipsis is unique to Hillary Clinton's speech because she needs to take rests as she speaks. But in a blog post, there's no need for ellipsis because there's no speech. And then long descriptive sentences are where they come together, as they're both describing events, and Hillary Clinton is describing what's going on with women currently in the world, and I'm describing what's going on in Hillary Clinton's conference or whatever. And then it differs when it comes to onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia isn't included in the speech as it is formal, and yeah, it just doesn't need onomatopoeia. But onomatopoeia is included in my personal account in order to further describe and get into what's going on within the text. Because it's my personal account and I'm trying to explain it. It's for like auditory imagery. One thing that you should also know is like the forms of imagery. I find this very useful because you can just throw it anyway. So there's olfactory imagery, gestatory imagery, and don't know what you call touch, visual imagery, and auditory imagery. I don't know what the touch imagery is called. Textural imagery. I don't know, but like you can waffle and find something else. But these are very easy things to like comment on. If you're lost, you can just say, oh, the writer includes olfactory imagery in this, and this helps. So instead of just saying imagery, because if you just like stack imagery on like one point, you can't include a lot. But when you like subdivide the imageries, you can actually like do something there. Where was I? So difference in onomatopoeia, and then they both use I, as these are both personal accounts. But however, they differ in with the fact that this is now Hillary's, and now this is coming back to mine. Mine includes a simile, as I am trying to convey what was going on in like the conference to people. So I need a comparison, which is basically the use of similes. And begin with conjunctions. This is actually wrong. This is meant to be so I have an excess of that. And I'm also going to include allusions here. So you can already see that there's stuff. Let me cancel out what I'm not including. I might not include this point. Paragraphs, boo. Onomatopoeia is going in. Usify is going in. Simile, I don't know, but allusions needs to be there because it's very easy to comment about allusions. Formal and informal is definitely going, definitely. Onomatopoeia. The thing is, I might not be able to expand on this. Use of I is definitely going. Beginning of conjunctions can be something tricky. So that leaves me with 5 paragraphs. So then I have to do the conclusion, which is weighing out their differences and like similarities. And the introduction will be basically introducing the two texts. See, I've been talking for a long while, so you can see like blah, 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 you know. I actually need to, because I have artwork to do. Similar to like this, I was writing another news report, right? And I did the same thing as what I was talking about before. Mr. Jared Way, because once again, when you're doing this stuff, you don't know these people, so you should always do that. What else? This is a leaflet. Leaflets, you're supposed to include stuff like, again with the titles, family, friends, and all things familiar, fricative, planning and preparing, plosive. A healthy body creates a healthy mind, and a healthy mind creates an even healthier life. Repetition of the word healthy, and it's a catchphrase. And the main title, far away from the familiar, fricative. So, language structure, if you need to know that. More planning. This, I kind of bailed this. I really hated that. I don't know the difference between descriptive and narrative, so I flopped. No, I don't really write much in this book, so that's it. Hope this helped.